My smoking hot wife bought me this old John Deere. It's a 110. It came with this 10 horsepower Kohler motor. See, it's an old one. It's tired. Got some rust and stuff on it. But it's alright. We're going to make it whole again. It's got the same problems all these old lawnmower videos have. It's got a beat up old carburetor. Typical stuff in the bowl here. Get some light here, see? Where is it at? Get some light. Well, you can see. It's rusty in there. And, you know what I'm trying to show you. It's dirty in there. Still got the gasket on. It's hard to show you. And then here's all the pieces and parts. Water had infiltrated this old this old carburetor. It's dirty. See that? Water sat in the bottom of this carburetor. But we'll get it cleaned up. I'm not going to show you how to clean a carburetor. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to do this. This is the gas tank shutoff. But you can look up cleaning carburetors somewhere else. I'm not going to rehash what everybody else has done. But I did have a problem with this starter. You can tell that's a Kohler starter. Nobody hit on it, but it does have a problem. The magnets inside of it busted. These are the magnets. They're broken. They are covered with this black stuff here. And if you look inside of this, now that I may not be able to show you. There, that dusty stuff, that's where the laminations from the rotor were at. This thing is full of this dust. It's got 1/2 magnet here on this side, and this side over here is where the remnants of the other magnet are at, where it busted. I could easily go on eBay and buy me one of these things, $40, $50. If I get lucky, maybe $30. But that's not what I want to do. We're going to do something that's not normally done on YouTube. Give you something fresh to do. Because I hold this thing in my hand, I look at it, contemplate what to do, and I decide we're going to fix this starter. Or at least make an attempt to. Because it's awfully familiar, with the exception of this welded bracket on here. But we can overcome anything with a grinder. So let's take a look at a couple things and see if we can't make this starter work again. So hang on, I'm going to set you up in this pantivice here. Get another starter. A more familiar starter. A Briggs and Stratton kind of starter. One of these. These are everywhere. Every time I get a lawnmower, it's got one of these starters on it. Plastic, junky, little Bendix, whatever you want to call it. This one here, I was going to take it apart because it doesn't spin very fast. It's probably good, but it's just rough. Needs some grease in it or something. But this one here is destroyed. This guy is really messed up. That's the commutator, if I remember correctly. But anyways, I'm going to take this apart, and we're going to start right back up again. So you hang on 1 second. A couple of 5/16 inch bolts back here, here, and here. And we'll take this thing apart in a couple minutes. Hopefully I can just pause this, but I probably have to make some editing. Hang on. Okay, I got a wrench. See if I can do this while you guys watch. Holy mother of God. I'm trying to go fast because I know watching somebody take something apart on YouTube can be rather tedious and boring. But we'll tear this thing apart in a matter of seconds here. Less than a minute anyways. Should have got a ratchet. Or a drill. Come on, man, be nice. Okay. If you're going to reuse this starter, you might want to be careful at this point. There's the cap. This right here holds all the brushes. Right here. If you're going to reuse it, be careful with this step because springs and stuff will go flying everywhere. But we know how to put it back together. Let me get you in frame here. There. All these little brushes and stuff. We've got to figure out a couple of things here, first of all. Is this, see the two magnets? This one's in good shape. Is the diameter of this the same as the diameter of this? Looks pretty darn close to me. Let me get a tool here. We also need to know if the diameter of this, the rotor, that's 2.166, 67, 70, roughly, is the same as this one. And this is 2.170. So I would say they're pretty darn close to the same. And the housing containing one set of magnets, we could, let me put you up straight up and down like this. 2 inches, 170. Right? Got to make sure you're not in the groove. 2 inches, 170. So the diameter of these magnets in this housing, with good magnets, is the same as this one. So getting this inside of here will be no problem. So we got this new and this Kohler. Briggs and Stratton, Kohler. Another question we got to ask ourselves is, where within this housing are these magnets located? Because there is a height difference. See, the Briggs and Stratton is taller than this one. But if you got a lathe or one of these, a mill, you got a hacksaw, a grinder, a few hand tools, some skills, you can make this emulate or replace this with this one. You just have to make sure that when you cut it up, you can get the magnets located within this housing the same as they are in here. This one and this one. So let's find out where these magnets are at. This magnet, let me try and get you some light so you can see here. Let me get a flashlight. This magnet right here, this step from the face of this housing, the metal right here, to the face of this magnet is approximately 420 thousandths. This one, from the face of the housing, I apologize, I'm not real good at making a video, to the edge of the magnet. It has this little white mark on it here. Here, this distance right here. It is 380. Maybe we ought to try and take the magnets out of this one and stick them in the other one. 380 to 420. 380 to 420. Man, that sure looks like they'd be the same, doesn't it? Don't these look like they're the same height? One's a little bit taller. The Briggs and Stratton is a tiny bit taller. You know what? We're going to go with it. 380 to 420. We're going to take off everything from this side right here and try to get the face of this wall right here. We're going to make it equal to the depth of this one right here. From this edge all the way down to the edge of that magnet. We're going to make them equal here. Okay, I'm going to do that and I'll be back. Okay, I haven't done any work yet. I've just been sitting here thinking. This is, once again, from the top of this magnet right here. See at the top of that magnet? Let me use my other hand. From the top of this magnet, right here. Let me get something else. I don't want to magnetize my calipers. From the top of this magnet to the top of this housing on the Kohler starter is come on, Steve. I do it a couple times so you get confident in what you're doing. Roughly 405 to 10 thousandths of an inch, depending on whether I hit some glue or not, some rust and dirt along this edge. On this one, this Briggs and Stratton, the top of that magnet to the top of this housing. Now this is not a very accurate way to measure anything, by the way. $350. So we got about 55 thousandths of an inch difference. You know, that much. Not much. But I think we're going to be okay. If I put the Kohler rotor into this stator, magnetic stator, of the Briggs and Stratton like this, put it in the housing, the holes line up between the magnets. And the only thing that's really going to be different is where the magnet is in relationship to these laminated, I don't know what you actually refer to that as. They're just laminations with wire wrapped around them to cause a pole. Current going through it creates a magnet, electromagnet, and it acts with the magnet in there and causes it to repel and attract. That's what makes it spin. But I don't think we're even going to notice this, because this is going to be in here. We're going to be slightly off like this with the magnets and the Kohler. And then inside of here, what we got to do, see if we can see it. The magnet is a little bit taller than the, let me see, than the actual, let me use this one. The magnet is a little longer than this, because this on the Briggs and Stratton, this part right here on the Briggs and Stratton is longer than the Kohler. So the magnet is a little bit taller. We're just wasting magnetic flux. The motor should still spin. It's still going to feel the current and create a magnet and cause the north-south to change states as it makes contacts with each one of these things right here. So let's make sure we have the same number of these. We got number 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of them. There's 16 of these 8 coils of wire. 1 in, 1 out. That probably has a lot to do with the RPMs of it, how often it changes states. And this one here better go a different route. Let's clean one. Well, that ain't too easy to tell, is it? Black on black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have the same number of these. These are just a little bit shorter. They measure 1 inch, roughly 600 thousandths. And these are 1 inch, 1 inch, about 775, 780. So all we're going to do is waste a little bit of our magnet, because these two things aren't the same length. This metal lamination, they're not the same length. We're just going to waste some magnet. Since we're not manufacturers, we don't care about that. So the placement of it's okay as long as we're longer. We can't be, you can't have this thing sitting inside of here like this or like this. As long as you can cover this whole thing right here with the magnet, it should still operate. And see, this fits right in here because it's dimensionally the same. The holes are the same. All we got to do is get this part close enough to this edge right here so that when we put this cap back on, the brushes can make contact with this commutator right here. So we just got to come down through here and chop this thing off right here somewhere. We got to take it off of this side, not this side. If this would have been too long out here, we'd had to take some off of here and maybe out of here. But we're going to have to take some off of this side. Make these two things the same height. That air hole isn't going to matter. Probably could use it anyways. Blow some of that black stuff out of there. But let's see if we can make a Kohler starter out of a Briggs and Stratton starter. I'm going to chop this guy off. to the same height as this one. And then I'm going to get a cutting wheel. I'm going to cut this bracket right here. It's welded right here. And it's welded right here. I'm going to cut this bracket off of here. And then I'm going to weld it onto this housing. And I'm going to cover this seam right here. Maybe give this thing a little bit more integrity. I don't think I can stay away from them magnets at all anyways. Maybe I'll just do a real super quick tack job on it. I bet they welded that before they put the magnets in it. And then all we got to really do is pay attention and make sure that this is the engine is on this side over here, so that when we have this in here, it overhangs the appropriate amount right here. Get the placement of it correct. It shouldn't be that difficult. I should be able to, you know, cut it off, weld it on there, and reassemble it using the Briggs and Stratton housing with all of the internals from the Kohler starter. Crazy, but I'm going to do it. What else you're going to do? Spend 50 bucks? Wait a couple days? Not educate anybody on YouTube. So we're going to try this out and see if it works. Alrighty. I'll come back when I get this cut off right here. Oh wait, let me show you one other way. Just one other thing. Some of you other guys probably think this is crazy, but how are you going to mark this all the way around? Right? You could take a wide piece of cardboard. Here, we'll use some of this tape. You could take a piece of something wide. It's got to be wide. Pipe fitters have some stuff. And then when you overlap it like this, you know, line it up. That way you know it's straight all the way across. And flat against the body of the starter. Come on. Because it's going to have to be square, right? Otherwise, you'll be kicking the inside of it around on an angle and you'll rub your magnets. So this is the most critical part of the whole job. You could do this. Make sure this thing is overlapping. Make sure it's flat. So when you make a mark around here, when you take your grinder or your hacksaw or whatever you're going to use, you know that you've cut this thing equal distance from here to the top of this tape so that it matches this. You know, get them measured, right? That's one way of doing it. If you don't have any sophisticated equipment like height gauges and stuff, layout stuff. I think all I'm going to do is go like that. I got a file here. I filed down the end of it. Files are flat, right? No such thing as a bent file. But not a real file. And you could sit here and go like this. Overhang it a little bit if you want. Make sure you're on a flat surface. And then when you rotate this thing around, you could make a mark all the way around it like that. Scratch it into the side of that thing. You got to scratch it. Wow, that's some good paint. But I'm scratching it. I don't know if you can see it or not. Or you could chuck it up in a lathe. I don't think I'm going to do that, though, because the way this seam is, that interrupted cut right there, right here, it's kind of hard on the tooling. Plus, I'd hate to separate that, but it looks like they welded it. But I'm not real sure, and I don't want to chip the magnet. I don't want to do to this what's already been done to this. So I'm going to contemplate this for a while, and I'm going to cut it some way, and I'm not going to show you what I did to cut it, but I'm going to cut it. I'll tell you what I did. Okay, I'll be back after I've cut it. Okay, we're back. Remember, Kohler starter, Briggs and Stratton. This one was taller originally. I chopped all these the extra height off of this starter here. Made it the same height as the Kohler, and I told you I would tell you how I did that. We mentioned several different ways, but the way I did it is, first thing I did is I clamped a C-clamp on it, because I didn't want to separate that seam right there and have this thing fly out of the chuck on me. I then put him in this lathe, little smithy machine, and using this cutoff tool, I dug it into here until I made a mark all the way around it. That's a 1/8 inch cutoff tool. And then I took a cutoff wheel and I followed the groove that I made inside of this housing while the chuck was spinning, throwing grinding dust all over my lathe. You shouldn't do this. Just don't move the ways around until you clean it. It's a bad way to go. And then when I got it cut off, I brought this cutoff tool back over here and I ran it in here real lightly, and I faced this off because I wanted to make sure that I had the height of these two things. Not absolutely perfect, but it had to be the same all the way around, because you don't want to cock this rotor inside of that housing, because this is crooked. You'll just be rubbing on the inside on the magnets. It'll create drag. And I thought that was going to be the most important step of the whole process. But I've come to the conclusion that there's another step that needs to be paid attention to more so than this. So we're going to throw this thing back together. I took the brushes and stuff out of this end cap because I'm going to have to put this thing together again, and I don't want to be fiddling with these brushes. I'll show you how I keep the springs compressed when I put it together permanently. But right now I just gutted it so we could throw it together real quick. This is the armature, rotor, whatever you want to call it, the commutator. I hit it with a wire brush, cleaned it up a little bit from the Kohler. This is the housing containing the magnets from the Briggs and Stratton. So those two are going together. I'm going to spin this end cap until I see daylight between the magnets right there, and then we're going to put this end cap on here. What am I doing wrong here? Let me pause this for a minute. I'm not doing anything wrong. This thing is spring loaded. When I first threw it in there, I had that gap and I'm like, what in the world is going on? But remember, this thing is spring loaded. So I got to pull this thing up while we put it together. See? Now it's all together. If you don't hold on to it, it pops back apart because the magnets are pulling this thing in that direction. So let's get some bolts back in here. Let's see if I can include you. There we go. Let me get this all lined up again. Let me see if I can get this so you can see through all the way through the hole. And now we're in between the magnets right here. See how this thing's cocked off center? This is why it's got to be flush. You can't have this thing cocked off center. You want it to set dead center. Have an even gap between the magnet and this armature all the way around. So let's poke the bolts through here. There's one. Here's the other one. Here's the end cap. They're blind holes. You're not going to see it once you put it together, but these little humps right here will tell you where the bolts go. Roughly. See? Same size it was before, except now it's got a Briggs and Stratton part. Oop, I missed. We're going to find this thing. There's the hump right there. I got to use another hand. You don't want to be in a hurry. Take your time and find that hole down there. Come on, Steve. There. And when you get in there, don't just start wrenching on it, because this is a long screw and it ain't hard to get that thing off center. Rotate it counterclockwise until you hear it find the lead, the beginning of the thread. Right there. Now you know you're, at least you're started properly. It might not be, you could jiggle it around and get it to go down in there easy. Don't start wrenching on this thing. Do the same thing over. See, I'm not in it yet. There it is. And let's snug him up. And then I'm going to take you out here where I got this engine. I set it up on some blocks, because we're going to weld it. Don't be too concerned about the location of this yet. Remember, we're going to take it back apart. Well, let's just put a little bit of tension on these bolts. And then let's go outside. I'm going to carry you outside. Explain something to you. And then I'm going to have to put you on hold while I do all the work and bring you back later. You've seen enough people welding stuff on YouTube. You don't need to see me. Okay. That's the Kohler minus the bracket. We're going to put the bracket on there. And then this thing's going to go, see, spins just fine. And it extends when it spins. All right. Let's go outside for a minute. I got this thing set up out here. Here's my little welder. And then here is the bracket back on the engine. I cut it off. I got it bolted back on there. My ground clamp, I'm ready to weld. This is what you got to be concerned with the most. You can't just be slapping this thing on here, right? Because you got clearance issues between these gears. This motor spins in this direction. Spins in that direction, and as it's spinning, there's a gear inside of it that causes this thing to rotate out. So you want to get this thing all the way out, right there. Right there. This is going to be hard to do two-handed. One-handed, I mean. And then when you get him on here, while it's extended, try to match where it was grinding, where it was making contact before. Let me change my position here. So get this thing all the way extended. And you see the shiny spots on the gear of the starter? Position that thing this way, in and out. And then you have to make sure that you're not doing, let me back this off for a second. You got to make sure you're not too close and you're not cocked like this, or cocked out too far, or especially in too far. So you got to be very particular about all this. Why not just buy a new one on eBay, Steve? well, then we wouldn't make this video. So I'm going to set this guy up, get all of this correct, so that I'm not, you know, I got the clearances between my gears. I ain't all jacked out of shape like this. And then I'm going to tack it one time under here. And take it back off. Because when I took that apart, believe it or not, that's two separate pieces of metal. I might have to put a tack down in here and here, so that when I take it apart, that thing doesn't separate on me. And then I got to worry about the position of this one and this one. I don't want to strain this housing right here and pop the magnets off inside of this one. Okay, so I'm going to set this all up and I'm going to tack it. When I tack it under here, it's going to, when it cools down, it's going to want to do this. It's going to want to pull away from that flywheel when the metal shrinks. And I can't get to the back bracket. So I'm gonna let you guys go for a minute, and I'm gonna cross my fingers, and we're gonna see what happens. Be back soon. Man, am I making a mess. Okay, let me get you back up to date here. I welded the bracket onto the housing of this Briggs and Stratton starter. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way. I've been doing a lot of stuff since we last updated you. I last updated you. Anyways, I put this on here and curiosity got the best of me. And I had to put some power to it. So I grounded out the body, hit the lug here with the positive. It extended and ran for like 10 seconds, just like starters do, and then it just went chunk chunk chunk, and it stopped spinning. It kept spinning, but it wouldn't extend anymore. And if you look here, this is one of the brushes in the Kohler starter. Here's another one right here. Here's another one right here. I wish I could get them closer. Let me get one else out. Let me get another one out of here. There's no springs in here right now. So here's one. This is the negative one. This is the negative one. If I take this positive one and we stack them up, you can see the height difference between the positive and the negative. And then this one here that broke, let me see, that thing goes in there, that lead at the bottom. And you can see the height difference. And what happened is this thing came out and it must have hooked one of these things. And it, anyways, it was, it quit working. It needs new brushes, this old ass starter. Oh, this old starter. You're probably wondering why in the world would this guy go through all this trouble over 50 bucks? Well, I remember counting the loaves of, the slices of bread, the pieces of bologna, pieces of cheese, because I had to live for a week or two on $50. Couple of sandwiches a day. 50 bucks is a lot of money sometimes. Maybe not today, but it used to be, and it might be for somebody else. But anyways, we started it. We're going to finish. So now I'm stuck with no brushes and not wanting to spend some money. But Briggs and Stratton to the rescue, right? This is what holds the brushes in the Briggs and Stratton. Where'd my spring go? The problem with these brushes is they're rectangles. because the armature on the Briggs and Stratton makes contact like this. And these things are rectangular. Each one of these commutator contacts are rectangular. This one, they're wedges. So when you make contact here, you're grounding out the positive and the negative if you attempt to use it like this. But believe it or not, we ain't quitters. We're going to make, other than that, it would fit inside of here. This contact will fit inside of this wedged body if we can make this one, this rectangle, look like this wedge. Let me see if I can get this positioned right. If we can make this one look like this one, we can replace this one with these. The lug and everything is exactly the same. The length of the wiring is the same. The Briggs and Stratton has one of these on the negative to ground it, and this just has an eyelet, a crimped eye on there. We're going to do some modifying. We're not done with this thing yet. As you can tell, I took a file and some sandpaper, and I already made this one, the old Briggs and Stratton contact. I already turned it into a wedge. I did it with both of these negative contacts. They may not be perfect, but we're going to find out if this works. And if this is just a waste of time, maybe it'll keep you from trying all this stuff in the future. Just hanging on, waiting. You got the time, wait. You got the money, spend it. If not, you can try all this. See what we can get away with. I'll be back. I'm going to file these things down, reassemble it, and show you how to hold these things in place while you reassemble it in case you buy new ones. I got a good method. I figured it out. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, you guys. I'm finally finished with this starter. I'm going to explain a couple things. We got to take it back apart. But I did one thing wrong. Well, one that I'm going to tell you about. When I put this, this is from the Briggs and Stratton. Holds the brushes. And, hold on, mosquito. He's gone. If you put this is the positive. You put it here and here, it'll rotate one direction with the negative here and here. What I first did when I put this starter together is I had this thing over here and here, for example, and it rotated the wrong direction, so this thing would never extend. When it took off spinning, this thing never extended because it was rotating that way, this way. In order to make this thing extend, it has to rotate the opposite direction, and the momentum throws this thing out here. Okay, so if you put it together and it's rotating the wrong way, just move the brushes within the holder. I told you I'd show you how to get these brushes assembled and hold all the springy bits down in place. So let me show you how I did it. Let me take it back apart real quick. I want to put a little some lubrication in certain parts of this thing anyway. So let me get this apart real quick. There you go. All these little brushes just flew out here. Remember, these are the Briggs and Stratton brushes, and I filed them down on an angle so they would fit the angle of these contacts on this armature. To hold them all down, I took a cover off of an electrical box, and I cut a hole in the center and made this little groove. You see that? I then as I got each one of them down in there, I covered it with this cover. Then I moved over to another one. Well, I'm right-handed. Let me change hands here. Come on. We're on a timetable here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This thing's holding all of those things in place there. Then you can drop this starter. I tried this with shims, but they weren't stiff enough. Then you drop this starter down in the hole and remove this. And there you go. It's assembled. If we ever play around with a Briggs and Stratton starter, I'll show you how I do that one. Or how I will figure out how to do it. Okay, let me put this back together. Show you that I can spin it. And it works. And we'll be right back. Hang on. Okay, I got it back together. Let me take it over here. Hook it up to this battery charger. Turn him on. Here we go. See? Runs good. I turn him off. I'm going to install him on the engine and get the bolts. Let's set you guys down. Touched the phone screen somehow and lost you. Here we go. Let me set you down. I can't tell if you can see me or not. Let me move you over here. Hey, baby. There we go. I haven't done this yet. Okay, we'll see what happens. Because it ain't working if it won't spin the motor, right? Well, don't ground the terminal out. I gotta tighten that terminal. Sorry about that. I don't like to put it on the positive one because it creates an arc and I gotta use that again. I don't want to arc across the positive. So here we go. I got a spark plug in it. It's hand tight, but it's in there. Let me show you. See, there's a spark plug in it. Won't turn it over under compression, and we wasted a lot of time. There you go. Briggs and Stratton Kohler. The Briggs and Kohler starter. Looks like I get to put cheese on my bologna sandwiches for a while. Take the wife out to dinner. Alright. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Come back again. We'll do something else that hasn't been done on YouTube yet. Hope you enjoyed. Sorry for all the poor video, and I'm trying. Enjoy your day. Come back.